This is your tropical weather update for Sunday, September 25th. Starting first with the tropical Atlantic, we now have post-tropical cyclone Ophelia. It has been downgraded as of the 5 p.m. advisory. We've been forecasting this for the last several days, and Ophelia has finally dissipated into a remnant low. And it's also passing much closer to the northeast Caribbean than the official forecast had it shown over the last 48 hours. That's thanks to the system being a little bit weaker than the Hurricane Center expected. But eventually this should begin to turn more toward the northwest. And this idea is in general agreement with all of the model guidance by turning this more toward the north. There's still some reason for Bermuda to keep a watch on this system. There's about a 30% chance that it could regenerate into a tropical cyclone, albeit it would be fairly weak in nature. And over in the eastern Atlantic, we have Tropical Storm Philippe. It has maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. The official forecast is taking this to a minimal Category 1 hurricane, but it's safely going to recurve into the open waters of the Atlantic without impacting any land masses, and this is also supported by the model consensus. Turning to the basin-wide satellite, we see that the Gulf and Caribbean continue to be quiet. The small disturbance located over the Bahamas yesterday has petered out and is no longer expected to have any chance of forming. This is the look at the remnants of Tropical Storm Ophelia. If there's any remnant circulation, it's very close to the Virgin Islands. If anything, it's just to the northeast of the islands. But notice where all the dominant convection is located, well out toward the east, and that's thanks to this upper level trough that we see on the water vapor. There's the upper level low associated with it. The upper level conditions are expected to remain unfavorable for the next several days, and I don't foresee Ophelia becoming a tropical storm again. But still, interest here in Bermuda, still keep an eye on the system. And of course, this is Tropical Storm Philippe. The Hurricane Center does expect this to become a hurricane, but based on the current water vapor representation, I do not foresee the conditions becoming favorable enough for this to develop to that magnitude. In fact, you see a lot of strong northerly and westerly winds above 20 degrees north latitude, and that's the general direction that this storm is heading in. Turning to the eastern Pacific, Hurricane Hilary is still a powerful major hurricane. However, those maximum sustained winds have decreased to 125 miles per hour, so that makes it a Category 3 on the hurricane scale. If we turn on the infrared, it still has a well-defined eye, but on the latest water vapor, you can begin to make out that the western half of the hurricane is becoming restricted by southwest wind shear and a lot of dry air. And on the regional water vapor, you can see that there is more troughing beginning to enter Southern California. So with time, Hurricane Hilary should begin to move more toward the north, and that's when sea surface temperatures come into play. If we go ahead and overlay those water temperatures, we see that if this begins to move a little bit more toward the northwest before turning into the Baja Peninsula, it's going to be moving into sub 26 degrees Celsius water temperatures, so we should begin to see significant weakening, not only due to that dry air and wind shear, but also, once again, those cooler water temperatures. This is the latest forecast from the National Hurricane Center. By 11 a.m. on Friday, they expect it to be just to the west of the Baja Peninsula, but much weaker. We're talking about a tropical storm, and if it parallels the Baja Peninsula, much like this forecast is indicating, then it very well could weaken below tropical cyclone status, and if anything, we might see nothing more than some isolated showers beginning to move into the coast. So overall, even if this did make landfall, it's beginning to look like it's not going to be that much of a significant event. Here is a look at the most recent model plots, and nearly all of the models are beginning to show this turn toward the northeast. There was some question whether or not this would happen over the last couple of days. We had a couple of models taking this more out to sea, but we are fairly convinced that it is going to make this northerly turn. But also notice that many of the models still keep this to the west of the Baja Peninsula, which is certainly some good news. Looking ahead, starting off with the 12Z run of the Canadian CMC model, we see that it takes Hurricane Hilary more out to sea, and it keeps it well to the west of the Baja Peninsula, and somehow, some way, it still maintains the remnants of Tropical Storm Ophelia, and it takes it actually just to the east of Bermuda, while the rest of the Atlantic Basin and the eastern Pacific are fairly quiet throughout the forecast period. Switching over to the 12Z run of the GFS, it keeps Hurricane Hilary just a little bit closer to the Baja Peninsula, but it still shows it primarily paralleling the coast throughout much of the next 6 to 7 days, and it's more than likely showing too strong of a system. By the time it gets into those cooler water temps, it's highly unlikely that it would be able to maintain itself for that much of an extended period of time. And the rest of the eastern Pacific is quiet. The same can be said for much of the Atlantic Basin. It takes the remnants of Ophelia to the east, and that is the current model consensus today. if Ophelia were to redevelop, it would more than likely remain just to the east of Bermuda, and of course Tropical Storm Philippe is no threat to land. And before we wrap up the video for this afternoon, this is a quick look at the 10-day forecast from the European model. It really doesn't maintain Tropical Storm Ophelia, so this is more than likely the most accurate representation out of any other model guidance. By 96 hours, it actually maintains a broad low just to the north of Puerto Rico, but it's not showing any signs of redevelopment. Tropical Storm Philippe is staying rather weak due to those unfavorable conditions that we talked about while observing the water vapor. And through days 5, 6, 7, and day 8, we still don't see any sign of tropical development anywhere in the Atlantic or Eastern Pacific. By day 9 and day 10, we have a broad area of low pressure here in the Western Caribbean and over Central America, but nothing is getting its act together. So that wraps up your tropical weather update for this Sunday. Please check by again at 28storms.com or the Hurricane Tracker app for another video update by Monday afternoon.